A very good evening everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. Today is 16th June 2025 and today we have some very important topics for the discussion. So one by one we'll try to discuss all these important topics in a very detailed manner, so that this discussion will be helpful for your prelims and mains examinations. So without any further delay, let's get into the discussion and let's discuss the first important topic, that is with respect to India and Cyprus bilateral relations. And we all knew that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a visit to Cyprus, and in fact it has a very significance for India, because during Operation Sindoor, Turkey openly supported Pakistan, and Turkey has also provided drones to Pakistan as well during Operation Sindoor. However, Turkey several times also raised the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in the United Nations as well. Now, in this context, keeping in mind the Cyprus-Turkey bilateral relations, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus is very significant for India. Now, first of all, we'll try to understand the context of this visit. The context is that, so in June 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus, a small island nation in the Mediterranean Sea. I hope all of you knew where is Mediterranean Sea, because Mediterranean Sea is very important for UPSC prelims examination, and very often at least one question every year asked from that particular topic. And in fact, the Middle East as a region is also very important for prelims examination. So therefore, on June 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus is considered as the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister over 2 decades. In last 20 years, this is going to be the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister. However, this particular visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes amid Turkey's growing support to Pakistan. As I have already told you that during Operation Sindoor, Turkey has openly supported Pakistan, and Turkey has also provided drones to Pakistan as well. And in this context, there are also rising regional tensions as well. So because of that reason, this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very important to Cyprus. However, so this visit is considered as a strategic outreach by Indian Prime Minister to Middle East, up to Cyprus, because this plays a very important role in countering the adversarial alignments. So what are these adversarial alignments? Because it is being said that Turkey is openly supporting Pakistan, and now this will be considered as an adversarial alignment by India. So therefore, this outreach is considered as a strategic outreach to counterbalance the adversarial alignments and also reinforce India's presence in the Mediterranean region. Because as I have already told you that Cyprus is a small island nation in the Mediterranean region. So therefore, overall leverage Cyprus EU influence as well, because Cyprus is a European Union member country, and 2026 Cyprus is also going to become the chairman of the European Union Council as well. So therefore, in order to access the European Union institutions, better trade deals with the European Union, so we wanted to leverage Cyprus EU influence. So because of all these reasons, so this visit is considered as a very important for India. Now, India and Cyprus strategic alignment. India very long looking for or advocating for the permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council or United Nations reforms, because as of now, United Nations Security Council is only a limited club of 5 countries. So only 5 countries have the veto power. However, India have been long advocating for the reforms within the United Nations Security Council, and India is also a member of G4 grouping, that consisting of Japan, Germany, India and Brazil. So G4 is consisting of 4 countries. What are those 4 countries? Brazil, Japan, Germany and India. So they are advocating for reforms within the United Nations Security Council. So they are advocating for expansion of the United Nations Security Council. And India also wanted a seat in the global high table. However, in this aspiration, Cyprus continuously supporting India's permanent membership at the United Nations Security Council. And apart from that, there is also another important grouping which is called as Nuclear Suppliers Group. Since India has not signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty, India is not a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group. However, even if India wanted to become a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group, China continuously vetoing this proposal of India becoming a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group. If India becomes a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group, so India would have access to the nuclear technologies. India would also have access to the nuclear raw material as well. However, here Cyprus, along with supporting United Nations Security Council India's membership, it has also been supporting India's NSG entry as well. Understand, as of now, India is not a member of Nuclear Suppliers Group, but India is already a member of Missile Technology Control Regime, Australia Group, and Wassenaar Arrangement. However, there are 4 missile technology control regimes. India as of now is not a member of NSG, but India is already member of remaining 3 groups. So I hope you have understood this. Next is Cyprus is set to hold presidency of European Union's Council in 2026. So therefore, Cyprus will become a gateway for India's leverage with European Union's institutions and even the trade architecture as well. Remember that we wanted to have a free trade agreement with the European Union, and we wanted to have a better trade and commerce with the European Union. So therefore, in this context, India can better leverage the presidency of Cyprus to European Union Council 2026 as well. So this is considered as a strategic alignment that is unfolding between India and Cyprus. Now in this context, we will understand the Turkey angle in shaping India and Cyprus relations as well. And one thing that we should understand here, Cyprus and Turkey have a long-standing territorial dispute with each other. In 1974, there was a Turkish invasion to Cyprus. Remember, I have already told you that Cyprus is a small island nation which is located in the middle of Mediterranean Sea. However, in 1974, there was a Turkish invasion into Cyprus, and that has led to the split of Cyprus Island. And in this context, only Turkey recognizes Turkish Republic of the Northern Cyprus. And understand, so if the Cyprus Island looks like this, the Northern Cyprus is claimed by Turkey after 1974 invasion of Cyprus. However, as of now, Cyprus still remains under the United Nations peacekeeping force to ensure the peace in Cyprus. Now, the other thing that we have already discussed and we need to understand is Turkey has been gradually supporting Pakistan, and Turkey has also been raising the issue of Jammu and Kashmir in the United Nations at regular intervals. And during Operation Sindoor also, Turkey openly supported Pakistan. So therefore, in this context, there is a need for a strategic alignment between India and Cyprus to counter Turkey and Pakistan axis as well. By visiting Cyprus, India now signals a counter narrative to Turkey. So if you continuously support Pakistan, we will also continuously support Cyprus against you and also Armenia as well. So this is how India has been sending a strong signal to our adversary Turkey. So therefore, it reaffirms its alignment with like-minded democratic partners. Now here, one thing that we should understand, that India is the largest democracy in the world, and India is having the common interests and shared vision with all democratic countries. and Cyprus is a like-minded country, and that shares a lot in common with India as well. And that's where this strategic relationship has been unfolding between India and Cyprus. Now we will understand the strategic relevance of Cyprus for India's geo-economic goals. So remember that now we have become the fourth largest economy in the world. So therefore we have several ambitious geo-economic goals. Now in this context, how Cyprus is relevant for India to achieve its geo-economic goals. Now one thing that we should understand here is in 2023 India hosted the G20 summit. So during the G20 summit, India along with other European countries have come up with India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. And this India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor is very important to achieve India's geo-economic goals. However, it is being said that Cyprus as an island nation which is located within the Mediterranean Sea, which plays a very important role in connecting Middle East with the Europe, is geographically very crucial and important for this India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor's total connectivity plan. Because the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, Cyprus would link India to Europe via Middle East. So overall, this India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor would link India with Europe through the Middle East. However, here Cyprus can act as a transshipment hub, and even it can also have the logistical parks as well. So therefore Cyprus is an important partner or an important pillar in the success of India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, and that will help us achieve the geo-economic goals that we wanted to pursue. And similarly, India also wanted to boost the private sector engagement in certain areas, including clean technology, shipping, financial technology, and education as well. So clean energy and clean technologies are very important for India's clean transition. And shipping is also another potential sector. India and Cyprus would cooperate with each other. And India is known as the global leader in the digital transactions. So therefore the financial technology is also another major area of cooperation between India and Cyprus, followed by education as well. However, using Cyprus as a stepping stone to the Mediterranean markets as well, and that's how India is going to achieve its geo-economic goals with Cyprus. Now we'll understand the comprehensive analysis and way forward. So what should be the way forward between India and Cyprus relationships going ahead? Now one thing that we should understand here is that India's outreach to Cyprus, it signifies a multi-vector diplomacy. Now what is a multi-vector diplomacy? So it essentially means a diplomacy which is not focused on any one particular sector or field. A multi-vector diplomacy would deals with a number of different areas. So those areas including balancing the adversarial pressures. So what are these adversarial pressures? So we all knew that there has been a growing Turkey-Pakistan axis. So in order to counter Turkey-Pakistan axis, India has been regularly supporting both Cyprus as well as Armenia. And apart from that, India is also focusing on building enduring partnerships with all these countries. So Cyprus, European Union's role and its geostrategic location and its economic openness. So all these factors would make Cyprus a valuable partner for India in its Act East Europe framework. Now in this context, one thing that we should understand is what are India's long-term interests. In which areas India's long-term interests are lie in. So one thing is institutionalizing the strategic dialogue with Cyprus is very important to further strengthen the bilateral relations between India and Cyprus. And we need to expand the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor's footprint via Cypriot ports as well. Now here, Cyprus can actually provide transshipment hubs for India and even the logistic parks as well for the success of India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. And it would further strengthen India and European Union's economic convergence as well. India would have better access to European Union's economic institutions. And using such a diplomatic visits by India, and it will be considered as a signal to adversarial actors, particularly Turkey in focus. So I hope you have understood the objective of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus. So there are a number of reasons, so economic reasons, geopolitical reasons and geostrategic reasons as well. And here you can also see the location of Cyprus as well. So as I have already told you that Cyprus is a small island nation which is located in the Mediterranean Sea. And Cyprus is also very close to Turkey as well. And the northern Cyprus is still under the Turkish occupation. By Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Cyprus, India has been sending a strong signal to adversarial powers like Turkey, which have been very often interfering in India's internal matters. And another important aspect of this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Cyprus is that PM Modi has been recently conferred with a Cyprus' highest civilian honor, which is Order of Macarois III. So Order of Macarois III is considered as the highest civilian honor of Cyprus, and that has been recently conferred to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I hope you have understood this. And next important topic is flue gas desulfurization. And in fact, in 2025 prelims examination, there is a question on flue gas desulfurization. So therefore, we'll try to understand what exactly is a flue gas desulfurization and how it actually works, what is its objective and why it is in news. So if you can carefully understand what is flue gas desulfurization, if any question is being asked on this topic, you can be able to answer this. And remember that every year UPSC has been asking about the thermal power plants as well. In 2023-2025, there are questions on thermal power plants as well. So therefore, what is the context? The context is that a high-level expert committee, which is chaired by Principal Scientific Advisor Mr. Ajay Sood. So he has recommended the rolling back of 2015 policy of Government of India mandating installation of the flue gas desulfurization units in all coal-fired thermal power plants. Now, I hope you have understood this. And in fact, the coal-fired thermal power plants, so which are used to generate electricity. And in fact, in India, more than 50% of total electricity is produced from the thermal power plants. And thermal power plants use coal as a raw material for generation of electricity. And here, a coal is a fossil fuel. And when we burn the fossil fuel, it releases the greenhouse gases on a large scale into the atmosphere. Along with greenhouse gases, it also releases sulfur into the atmosphere, and it is a major source of air pollution. However, installation of flue gas desulfurization units will result in a reduction of sulfur dioxide levels into the atmosphere. I hope all of you knew about the acid rain. And in fact, sulfur dioxide is one of the main component of the acid rain. However, if we install the flue gas desulfurization devices in thermal power plants, so they could actually reduce the emissions of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. However, the rolling back or this proposal to roll back installation of flue gas desulfurization comes at the wake of a low compliance rates. So despite there are orders from the government to install the flue gas desulfurization units in most of the thermal power plants, the compliance is very poor, and the financial concerns which are associated with it and time delays as well, because it actually cost it is actually costly. And apart from that, low compliance rates or poor compliance rates, along with that, the recent Ministry of Environment notification differing implementation deadlines as well. And all these factors have been led to Principal Scientific Advisor Ajay Sood recommending rolling back of installation of the flue gas desulfurization units. Now, what is a flue gas desulfurization? So we'll try to understand this. And in fact, the flue gas desulfurization is a pollution control technology. Through these units, we can effectively control the pollution. And in fact, they are designed to remove the sulfur dioxide SO2 from the flue gases, which are being emitted during the combustion of fossil fuels in thermal power plants. So remember, as I have already told you, that thermal power plants use coal as a raw material. When we burn coal in these thermal power plants, they release greenhouse gases on a large scale along with the sulfur dioxide as well. And this flue gas, which is emitted during the combustion of fossil fuels in thermal power plants, and this will be removed by the flue gas desulfurization units. However, there are different types of flue gas desulfurization technologies. So one is a dry sorbent injection. So dry sorbent injection actually involves the powdered limestone, and that also removes pollutants emitted by the thermal power plants. Second is wet limestone scrubbing, and it actually forms gypsum, and it is most widely used flue gas desulfurization technology. And apart from that, the seawater scrubbing is also another flue gas desulfurization technology. However, it is used in the coastal plants. These are the different types of flue gas desulfurization technologies. Now here, what is SO2 control? Why this SO2 control is necessary and important? And sulfur dioxide contributes significantly to the air pollution via a secondary particulate formation. And in fact, sulfur dioxide is one of the most critical air pollutant. And in fact, it is also the major contributor to the respiratory diseases, acid rain, and it even contributes to the climate change as well. However, according to modeling studies, a 15% of India's particulate matter 2.5 is mainly attributed to the coal, and 80% of that is due to the SO2 emissions alone, right? So therefore, SO2 is a major contributor to the climate change, acid rain, and respiratory diseases, and it is also a major contributor to the particulate matter 2.5, which is a major air pollutant. So therefore, it is important that these thermal power plants must reduce the SO2 emissions. So that to happen, we need to have the flue gas desulfurization units, and they must be installed in thermal power plants. Now we'll understand the status of flue gas desulfurization implementation in India as of April 2025. However, the mandate issued in 2025 to all 537 coal-fired thermal power plants in India, because the order has mandated that all thermal power plants in India must install the flue gas desulfurization units immediately. Original deadline that was set to meet the target was in 2018, but later it was revised to 2027 and 29. However, as of now, only 39 plants have installed the flue gas desulfurization units, but not all thermal power plants as mandated by 2015 order from the government. Now, new installations will approximately take around 2 years. So it will also take a lot of time, and it also takes it is costly, and it also takes a huge amount of time, and that's why the thermal power plants are reluctant to comply with the mandate that was issued in the year 2015. Now, in this context, we'll understand some economic and policy challenges. So, the total estimated cost for planned capacity addition would be 97,000 crore. However, the government actually cited the public health, affordability, and even the emissions balance in evaluating the rollback as well. However, when we talk about the broader environmental and policy linkages, there is already a legislative framework, which is Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981, and this flue gas desulfurization has links with it. And in fact, compliance is also critical and important for India's Paris Agreement on nationally determined contributions and India's air pollution reduction commitments as well. So therefore, it is important for the thermal power plants to install the flue gas desulfurization devices, and that can reduce the emissions of sulfur into the atmosphere. And India will be able to meet its climate commitments. Along with that, India will also ensure the health of the people and reducing the levels of pollution as well. So I hope you have understood this particular topic. And next important topic is Rajasthan model of a cash plus initiative, and that addresses the infant mortality, maternal mortality, and the nutrition challenges in the state of Rajasthan. So we'll try to understand about this Rajasthan model of cash plus initiative in a much more detailed manner. Now, what is the context? The context is that Rajasthan has successfully piloted and even expanded a cash plus model. And in fact, the cash plus model that has been launched in the state of Rajasthan has integrates a conditional cash transfers via Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana extension with social and behavioral change communication across 5 tribal districts for better outcomes. And in fact, this model in Rajasthan aims to improve both maternal as well as the child nutrition. And one thing that we should understand here is that a country like India, where there are a high level of malnutrition are prevalent, so it is very important to improve maternal and child nutrition through such innovative programs. And in fact, it serves as a blueprint to achieve the sustainable development goals. And in fact, we need to achieve the sustainable development goals by the year 2035. In majority of the sustainable development goals, India is already performing very well. So such innovative initiatives would help India achieve the sustainable development goals as well. Now, how it has been achieving convergence with cash transfers and with behavioral changes. So India carries nearly 1/3 of the global undernourished children. So this is a very important fact that you should understand. So whenever you get a mains question on undernourishment in the introduction, you can write this as well, because it creates a good impression about your answer. So you can simply say that India carries nearly 1/3 of global undernourished children. And apart from that, the additional data can also be provided that 18% of low birth weight rate in India and 1/5 of the children under the 5 years who are considered as wasted. And here, undernutrition among mothers and infants negatively impacts the sustainable development goal number 2, and sustainable development goal number 2 talks about the zero hunger, and sustainable development goal number 3 talks about good health, and sustainable development goal number 5 talks about the gender equality. So therefore, undernourishment among mothers and infants would negatively impact all these sustainable development goals. However, global studies actually show that cash transfers or cash incentives, along with social, behavioral, and changes in communication, right? So these two effective strategies would yield stronger outcomes than the standalone interventions that were already taken in number of other states as well. So therefore, a combination of cash plus social, behavioral, and changes in the communication is very, very important here. So what sort of an implementation framework that we can actually have? So firstly, expanded eligibility is very important. Now in this context, Rajasthan's model include the second time pregnant woman as well. However, in most of the times, the pregnant woman in their first delivery only, it will be covered. But in Rajasthan, we can see an expanded eligibility model where Rajasthan's second time pregnant woman would also be part of the Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojanas. So this Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana would only focus on the first child, but Rajasthan's model would also covers the second child pregnancy as well. And in fact, so the benefits would be delivered through a unified registry, and even an auto enrollment has also been put in place, with the disbursement of cash incentives would be tied to compliance during the pregnancy and even during the infant stage as well. However, a multi-channel approach has been launched, and this multi-channel approach in the state of Rajasthan, including the interpersonal counseling, community mobilization, mass media targeting, and digital messaging and frontline worker job aids. So all these factors would form part of the multi-channel approach, and this multi-channel approach plays a very important role in reducing the undernourishment among the children, stunting, wasting, maternal mortality rate and infant mortality rate, and it would also successfully reduces the low levels of anemia among the pregnant and adolescent mothers as well. So I hope you have understood that particular topic. And another very important topic, and this could be important for your prelims and mains examinations, and this could be important for your general studies paper 3, and this article has been given in the Hindu newspaper. Now we'll try to understand the context of this particular article. The context is that the government of India has recently relaxed the special economic zones rules, and in fact the objective of relaxing the special economic zones rules is to attract investment on a large scale in domestic semiconductor and the electronic manufacturing sectors. And in fact, the semiconductor and electronic manufacturing sectors are some sectors which are considered as crucial for reducing the import dependency as well as securing the supply chains for India. And in fact, supply chain resilience is very important for India, and we should not depend on a very few countries or one single country for our supply. So therefore, we need to achieve the supply chain resilience as early as possible, and in this context, relaxing rules of investment in special economic zones, which particularly deals with some areas such as electronics manufacturing and semiconductor, would play a very important role in further strengthening the supply chain resilience of India. Now, what exactly is a supply chain resilience? So many of you are not aware about this fact. So supply chain resilience is that, there are a number of critical minerals that we have been importing from other countries, a number of raw materials we have been importing from other different countries. So what if India achieves the self-reliance, that we are able to produce the raw materials that we require on our own, or we diversify the resources? We are not just depending on only few countries or one single country. So if one single country stops exporting those critical minerals to India, we go for other countries. So that is a diversifying the basket, or India is able to produce those minerals on its own, right? So that is what is called as securing the supply chains, or supply chain resilience as well. So we wanted to achieve the supply chain resilience, and changes in the SEZ rules also aims at the same thing. And in fact, this move complements the existing Semicon India program, and the Semicon India program has been launched by the government of India in the year 2002 with a financial outlay of rupees 76,000 crore. And we understand the semiconductors and the strategic importance of semiconductors for us. And in fact, when we talk about the semiconductors, a simple definition of semiconductors is that, so they are materials with the properties of conductivity between the conductors and the insulators. And in fact, the semiconductors are also considered as a core components of integrated circuits or the microchips. So therefore, semiconductors are actually the materials with the conductivity, and this is a very simple definition of semiconductors. And in fact, these semiconductors very often found in the smartphones that we use regularly, computers, automobiles, defense systems, artificial intelligence infrastructure, and Internet of Things devices. So in all these different electronic devices, we regularly see or use the semiconductors. However, semiconductors is considered as strategic resource as well, because post COVID-19, so countries have understood the vulnerability to the global supply chains. And during COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a prolonged lockdowns in different countries, and that hit the supply chain networks all across the world. And that's how countries have understood the vulnerability of global supply chains, especially with China producing 35% of the world's supply of world's chips in the year 2021. And in fact, the semiconductors and supply chain resilience is also having the national security link as well. Now, in this context, disruption in chip supplies can actually impact defense, critical infrastructure, and even the strategic autonomy of our country as well. So therefore, it is important for India to achieve the supply chain resilience. We should not depend on one single country or a few countries on our supply chain resilience. Now, in this context, we'll understand the relaxation in SEZ rules to attract large-scale investment in semiconductor manufacturing as well as manufacturing of electronic items. Now, if you look at the previous restrictions, SEZ units had to export at least 51% of their total output. And in fact, the domestic tariff area sales were taxed heavily as well. Now, if you take into account the recent changes in the SEZ rules, government has eased the DTA access for a certain special economic zones for manufactured goods, thereby allowing more flexibility in domestic sales without significant penalties or the procedural bottlenecks as well. Now, what will be the implications of this? So this is expected to facilitate semiconductor fabs and electronics units to sell in India's growing domestic market, and it is considered as a key concern for potential investors. However, the Semicon India program has been launched in the year 2022. And in fact, the Semicon India program has been launched by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology with the financial outlay of rupees 76,000 crore. Now, what are the components of Semicon India program, which aimed to encourage manufacturing of semiconductors and other electronics in India? So design linked incentive scheme is a main component of Semicon India program, modified program for semiconductors and display fab ecosystem. So these are the important components, and the total objective is to develop self-reliant semiconductor ecosystem, including design, manufacturing, packaging, and research on the semiconductors in India. And in fact, in India, we have a SEZ Act, and that has been framed in the year 2005. And in fact, under the SEZs, so the following incentives are being provided for the companies if they have established their manufacturing units in these special economic zones. For example, there will be a single window clearance for approvals, and units must become a net forex earners within 5 years. All these factors would be taken into consideration. Now, what are the positive impacts of the special economic zones? For example, to a country like India, so we would have a world-class business environment, and we would also attract a large-scale FDI into our country, and higher economic growth would be a possibility. For example, China, a best example of having such economic zones, and those economic zones are also attracted a large-scale FDI, and a higher economic growth has also been achieved by countries like China. And in fact, these special economic zones would also have infrastructure, and it would result in export growth, employment opportunities, and it would also gives an exposure to technology and global markets as well. So it also having multiple benefits to the business houses and to the people as well. For example, hassle-free operating environment such as the single window clearance has been given approval, right? So a simplified procedure for setting up businesses, compliance procedures with self-certification and duty-free import, and tax exemptions such as value added tax, CST, ST and other levies, and external commercial borrowings, and even 100% profit repatriation from the export earnings, right? So there are multiple benefits and advantages with the special economic zones. I hope you have understood this as well. And that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. If you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you so much.